woke is actually a religion.
Bum bum bum.
And that's not like a talking point. You know, it's not. It is something that people throw out, but I'm actually here to say like what the woke religion actually is. And
woke.
And here's the thing: is that most people, I do believe that it is the actual religion of most people in America today, even professing Christians. Really deep down, underneath it all, they actually believe the woke religion.
Most people.
Yes.
But didn't we have a red wave,
Well,
dog?
okay, so here's what I should say.
We had the red wave, dog.
In the Middle Ages, you had like Platonic thought and Christian thought, and they just got mingled. And
Greek worldview.
Yeah, and so
Plato.
Would a Christian, like, did he believe in the risen Lord Jesus and serve him fully? Yes. Was his worldview mingled with Platonic ideas that overshadowed biblical ones that, you know, were actually true?
And
yes.
I do want to know on the subject of Plato, is he believed Atlantis was a thing, at least in theory?
Atlantis was a thing.
Okay, well,
I'm a true believer.
Okay, but imagine if like Christians, that was a main doctrine. They're like, hey, okay, for real, there's this island in the middle of the. You know what I'm saying? How much atheists would roast Christians for that, and it's like Plato does it. It's like, that was a great philosopher. Anyway,
he was. I think it was real. Anyway. In the same way that in the Middle Ages, and even still today, Platonic thought is mingled in and overshadowing some biblical truths, I think the same thing is happening with the woke religion, is that it is so mingled into people's Christianity that even people who are professing Christians, they have this thing so deep inside their psyches. And outside of Christians, this actually is the predominant religion.
Okay, so your thesis is woke is a religion.
Yes.
And do you want to preface, before we watch this video, about what...
Yeah, we'll do this video at the very end.
Okay, very end. So what is the current event that happened that spurred this idea? And I don't know if...
The Transformers in the bathrooms.
Okay.
That is the... And now here's the thesis on that whole issue with Nancy Mace and the stuff that's going on with the bathrooms in Capitol Hill, is that if you believe in the woke religion, you cannot win that fight. It's DOA. Like, you cannot win. You are going to fight a losing battle from the very beginning.
If you accept the premises.
If you accept the premises of the woke religion, you cannot win. You have to step outside of the woke religion and believe and stand on something else. You can't win from inside the woke religion and its premises. Okay, so here's how it goes. Ready? It's a history lesson. There was a guy, he was an Italian, his name was Antonio, and he asked a very simple question. So there's communism, socialism, communism, Marxism, Maoism, all these different things. We think of communism primarily as an economic system, but the Communist Manifesto, when the guy wrote the Communist Manifesto, Karl Marx, he viewed it really as a worldview, which goes like this. All of history is a battle of classes. Everything that has happened across the planet Earth is because rich people and poor people fight. That's what happens. That's what happens in history. That is the lens through which you view every single interaction and conflict throughout history, is poor people and rich people fighting. One day, as these poor people and rich people fight, one day the poor people will rise up and seize the means of production and create a communist utopia. And they believed in this like a Christian believes in heaven. It is heaven to a communist. So it is not just an economic system. Hey, maybe if we structure things this way, it will work out better. It'll be better economics. It is a full-on, almost religious worldview of we got to love each other, we have to share. It's got all these weird Christian ideas about unselfishness and sharing, and there's this heaven that we're all going to work towards, and history is moving there, and we're going to be saved one day when when all of the workers of the world rise up and communism takes over the world. You have to start out with that it is a baseline. It is a worldview. It is not just an economic system. It is a religious type worldview that spawns off of Christianity and sucks God and Jesus out of it.
There's a salvation.
There is a salvation message. There's a heaven. There's a, you know what I mean? A call to morality, all of that kind of stuff. It's all in there. So then this guy, Antonio, he's asking, why did communists revolt in Russia, but they did not revolt in England when England was just as industrialized, if not more? Working conditions were even worse. All this stuff that you would have thought, oh, for sure, the working people in England will rise up and have the same communist. And if that is your worldview, that all of history is the clashes of the rich and poor, and it's inevitable that the workers will rise up, why didn't they? And so he came up with this added layer on top that in the class structure warfare, the rich people tell a story, and that story varies from culture to culture, but it looks something like this. You could say in the realm of the British, why don't you rise up? Well, because that would mean fighting, and that would mean destabilization, and that would mean, and at the very bottom of all of it, you would say, that's just not what we do. That's not the British way. That's just not what we do. That whole moral framework, that's just not what we do, is
a conspiracy,
is something that rich people made up to keep the structures where they are. So all of culture, all of morality, all of everything, and I'm painting with a super broad brush. Somebody who knows way more than me. I'm not reading any notes, so somebody who knows the details better than me could probably.
So this is not Marxism?
This is a guy questioning why didn't Marxism march forward like it should have.
Gotcha.
And his conclusion is there are structures in place. Now, as I talk, you're going to begin to hear some things that you hear people say.
Yeah.
There are structures in place that keep the powerful in power and keep the unpowerful out of power.
That need to be dismantled.
So then you have...
Like Christianity.
Then you have this idea of who are the powerful, and you begin to create your checklist boxes. Do you know what I mean? And whatever it is, like these are the powerful people, and they create a structure that tells a story that the powerful people should stay in power and the poor people should stay where they're at. And nothing should ever change about these. And you tell this powerful cultural story about how things should work and how the powerful should stay in power. So his idea was, if we are going to ever have a true communist revolution, you cannot just encourage the workers of the world to rise up. You actually have to change the story in everyone's mind so that
So this is an actual like initiative.
Yes.
Like large scale initiative. These woke ideas that are like infiltrating.
Yes.
So would you say that like an example of this would be like the bad people on the left, like, or the left think the bad people are the white Nazi Trump supporters,
So,
right? And then on the right it would be the Jews are controlling everything. And that's both like a narrative that they've created that are kind of...
Here is the counter narrative.
Okay.
This actually is the counter narrative of this guy, Antonio Gramsci, is that you have to teach people, not just economically to push them towards communism or socialism, but you have to teach people culturally that let's expand the narrative of class conflict from out of socioeconomic status. It is not just the poor against the rich. It's anybody who's the out group against anybody who's the in group. So label your ins and label your outs, and anybody who's out needs to somehow get in. You know what I mean? So if you go, you start ticking your boxes: white, male, Christian, straight, cisgender, all the stuff. right? Those are the ins, and anybody who's out, you need to band together to dismantle all the power structures that keep you out and get them in. And at the end of all of this is a true communist revolution that everybody gets flattened to be equal.
Yeah, I guess my question to this would be like, why can't we just accept people have that ideology and they can join the church and we just share with them the love of Jesus? Like, won't that still be good? Like, oh yeah, this is like, they want to believe that, that's fine, but they're still, they still might believe that Jesus is Lord and that, you can follow them.
So that's what I mean about there are lots and lots and lots of Christians who fundamentally have these ideas about power, about in-groups and out-groups, about, you can't keep me down, and all of that stuff. All of these ideas that come with the woke religion are inside of the church already. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
In our denomination, they said, on your leadership team, you must have a minority, a woman, and a person under 30. You have to take the unrepresented groups and represent them.
Wait, this is happening right now?
Yeah, it already got voted on. It already passed. It's already done.
Bro, I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
In our denomination. And it was a huge deal in the Southern Baptist Convention when they fought over critical race theory. And this is what critical race theory is viewing history and all of our stories through this lens. Well, this story was written by a white guy, and so he had the power and blah,
So
blah,
what
blah.
I was getting at with that, is this fundamentally, to me, like, I've studied this enough to like be pretty clear, like, this is fundamentally opposed to the worldview of the gospel of
Right.
the Bible. Is it actually fundamentally different than what we ought to be believing as Christians? Or is there a place where you can have these things, mandated by your denomination, let's say, and still operate in line with the scriptures?
Yeah. Remember, it was many, many, many moons ago, we watched that video by Tim Keller.
Yep.
He was, without saying it, he was talking about this exact thing. And his point was, in the gospel, everybody becomes equal through grace. So the low get raised up and the high get brought low. And so there's like an echo in it. The force, the way that it grips people is because there is a kernel of truth in it, that there are people in power who use that power wrongly, and there are people who are out of power. And you can even paint the story of Jesus in this way. The Romans were in power, and Jesus was the oppressed, and he came to the marginalized to rally them together to his cause. But that, you know what I mean? But you are painting the gospel in that story. Except that Jesus is the king of the universe, and he, came to the chosen people. So,
because this isn't just like politics infecting the church. Because I think a lot of people look at it like that and they go,
right.
Well, let's just separate. Because I literally heard of churches in the town we live in, like from friends that go to there, that said, if you talk about politics, I will kick you. Like the pastor's like, I will kick you out of church.
What?
Yes. We do not want, it's divisive.
Wowza.
Do not make, like, if you're on the leadership team, do not make a big deal out of politics.
Wowza.
Like, and almost to the point of like, don't talk about it. Just leave that at home.
So,
and that's what I'm like,
what I'm saying is that this is not political.
Yeah.
It is religious. And by religious, what I mean is it shapes your worldview around it. It is a core kernel of truth that you believe, that you shape the way you see everything else through that one lens. A Christian is someone who shapes their entire worldview through the belief that Jesus is the risen Lord of the universe, and I must obey him. And everything else comes out through that.
Yeah.
This is a belief that everything else comes out through the idea that the powerful are corrupt, and anybody who's the out group needs to work to dismantle the powerful.
And what's crazy is like Jesus spoke directly against an uprising militarily. And so like it is opposed to how Jesus dealt with this. He allowed them to crucify him, even though he had the power to overtake them in a very direct way. And somehow there is like, would you go as far to call the woke religion a demonic thought process? Okay, go into that, because we'd like to dance around this stuff because it's like most people do, because it's just like a weird thing to talk about.
I just think I think biblically, any idea like this, that is a principality by definition.
Yeah.
An idea that controls people the way that anything, Islam, woke, scientism, everything that is what a principality is a moving, forcing idea that not garnishes, rallies people together and moves them in different directions against different forces. And particularly as it slams up against Christianity and tries to tear down and rearrange the gospel like this. Original sin is not that you have sinned against God. Original sin is that you were a part of the power structure. And you can use the same words. You've sinned and you need to repent. But your repentance isn't actually saying sorry to God for ways that you dishonored and disobeyed him. It's saying sorry to other people for systems of oppression that you were a part of. And you have flipped the gospel upside down. And so anytime there is a thought, idea, force moving against Christianity, trying to tear it down or strip it or reorganize it or pull Jesus out from under it and pull Jesus and his saving power out from under it.
Yeah.
That is by definition a principality and demonic.
And the question is like, because we like to separate these boxes where it's like, well, over here we'll do the church thing. Out there you can talk about your politics or your philosophies or your ideas. My question is like, where's the line? Because like this whole situation in Congress, it's like, where's the line where you accept these ideas in the church world? And I for me and you, we're fairly conservative people, politically, socially. And so we're just like, no, you stop the line right at the beginning, of the root cause of it. You don't let anything seep in. But I'm just kind of, steel manning this a little bit in the idea of like, what happens when men start using the women's restroom at your church? Does that begin to be a real problem?
Okay. So here's where I want to get into the bathroom thing.
Yeah.
So Nancy Mace, she posted on Twitter, on X.
Yeah.
She said something like, I'm a feminist. I fought for women's rights. I blankety blankety blank. And I can't believe that somebody would accuse me of being against women because I broke the glass ceiling for women. The point being, she is trying to score the points by saying, I'm one of the out group, and I did my part in taking on the in group. You are coming from the place of the in-group, out-group distinction, and you will always lose.
Because there's always a lower.
There's always more. There's always somebody else. There's always another out-group.
Because the more marginalized person is
you get more points.
The more marginalized is not the actual woman, but the woman who is actually a man. So, that's more of a small minority.
Totally. And once you start playing that game, you can only lose. Period. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Once you concede that ground, that the worldview we're basing off of is power and who's in and who's out. And that's the whole thing about the woke, like that the woke eats its own or the left eats its own, is because that's the whole thing. Once you start playing that game, you know what I mean? I deserve my rights because I'm a woman. Well, now you go one rung lower and you say like, well, I need my rights. What about when transformer rights step on the rights of a woman to have a private space? Well, you always gotta play to the lowest, the lowest, the lowest, the lowest. Instead of, and that's what I'm saying is like, try to play that game. Like, we need to protect women because they're marginalized, or we need to protect women because of their special status, or
is that what she's doing though?
Well, what I'm saying is, if that's the route you want to take, if you want to say that, because if that's the leg you want to stand on, is the in-group, out-group, the rights, who's got the right, we have to give these people their rights. Once you start playing that game, you've already lost. You have to entirely leave the paradigm of woke and of power and of rights.
Sounds like you got to actually be a real Christian to
Well,
fight
okay,
this.
but that's what I'm saying is, and I think we said this in the last
Or at
episode.
least stand by the Bible.
What we said in the last episode about politics is that Christians must know what they want. You have to actually be able to say, this is the way it is because I'm a Christian. Not this is the way it is because of some woke assumption of power or rights or anything like that. This is the way it is
And
because
you
God
always,
said so.
you know, we were talking about this with another topic, but you always see like the Christian leaders who have bought in, you know, to whether it's BLM or whatever.
Oh yeah.
They always have an anger to them. You can
think
always
so?
see it. Yeah, when they're talking about it, they're talking about like when the truth actually comes out. Like, you know, it sounds all nice and stuff, but then I'm thinking of a particular pastor in an interview basically was like, I just want to torch all the white people.
Oh my word.
And what he meant was just like, you know, like his emotions
Right.
are to just a slam, like you don't know what I'm going through or whatever.
Right.
But it just, you know, there was just all this anger in it. I'm like,
If it is a religion, it is a religion built on bitterness and anger.
okay,
Because that is the whole paradigm. Okay, I want to bring up one more thing about politics. Mike Johnson.
okay,
Somebody asked Mike Johnson point blank, like, basically, what is a woman? Like, is a man a woman? Or can a man become a woman? Whatever he said. And he said, listen, I don't want to get into that. Okay, you know, blah, 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 blah. And then he goes, we have to show, we have to treat everyone with respect and dignity.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. When you want to play the woke game, who's the in-group, who's the out-group, who needs to be shown dignity, who gets their rights? Do you know what I mean?
Well, you do know he came out and corrected that.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying is the first reaction impulse. And that's what I mean by how deeply embedded it is.
It's because of cancel culture. And it even happens with us, with even Christian stuff. What you could talk about, what you can't talk about, because you're afraid the mob is going to come after you.
So that's what I mean is how deeply embedded it is in everyone's psyche.
Yeah.
But trying to rip that open and expose that it is a different worldview, it is a different religion entirely, that then for him to come back and correct it, and as a Christian, I know he's a Christian, to say, no, you, like, a man is a man and a woman is a woman. That's it, period. And but to win, you have to be able to stand on something else, to be able to say God's way is the way. And I'm not going to use your assumptions. I'm not going to use your premise. I'm not going to use your worldview. This is the way it is, actually.
Yeah.
That is the only way. That is the only way for Christians or for conservatives, for that matter, to win.
Well,